are on the set of the Golden Gate Bridge. This is where the final battle sequence takes place. This is the largest mocap volume in the world, and the first time it's been done outside. So Weta is basically changing all the rules with motion capture.
It was a world first. We had to create the Golden Gate Bridge as a live, physically built set, but we then had to have performance-captured apes on that bridge, and we therefore had to use all of the technology that Weta brought to a real location.
Timing for us is lucky. We came right at a time when Jim Cameron and Weta had done something that had never been done before. Joe Lettieri and his group down there had perfected this performance capture. You know, we were shooting exteriors and performance capture. No movie's ever done that.
Well, what we did is we created these cameras that were able to see all the performance capture markers and information in daylight. It was kind of setting those up and hiding them so that when you're photographing the set, you don't see the cameras, but they're there and they're recording what the actors are doing. And then you have an actor who is in his full mocap suit, and he's in there acting with everyone that is in on the performance with him.
It's a one big Velcro piece suit. They've upgraded to these infrared sensors the cameras can pick up outside in daylight. This is breaking new ground. It's really nice to be outside on the Golden Gate Bridge with real live action actors and cars as apes.
There were a whole lot of other things that we had to take into account, you know, the heat and the moisture, and so we built little closures over the motion capture cameras so they wouldn't get fried if it started to drizzle a little bit.
Unfortunately, because we were doing the motion capture in the photography that we were doing, you couldn't just put cameras wherever you wanted to. So we ended up having a fixed row of cameras along the green screen wall, but there were also cameras that were on movable towers that we could kind of position in and out.
We came up with this quick recalibration process where we had the object of known dimensions and they would be put into the space to quickly recalibrate the cameras because we had to move them so much.
So I'm about to calibrate the motion capture system with this device here we call the wand. It's a known device. All the cameras are about to watch me wave it around. Looks a little silly, but let's just do what we do here. This is our other calibration device. It's we call it the L frame. It looks like the coordinate system and a graph. So we place it out here so the cameras can see it. And then between the wand and the L frame, we can figure out where we are.
Golden Gate Bridge set was huge. I mean, so it's 6 lanes of traffic with sidewalks on either side. And so the challenge of trying to actually see what was being recorded there was pretty extreme because we had to be high and far away in order to be able to mount the cameras to cover the whole set. But you got actors with little dots glued to their costumes that are far away, and each of these cameras has to be able to track all the dots that are going on amongst all the cars and the reflections and figure out what's going on to discern the movement of all these apes running around.
With the second unit stuff, they know what they're going to shoot, but a lot of the choreography happens 10 minutes before we're going to shoot it. So they'll choreograph a bit where all of the apes are coming over the railing and attacking the police officers. And then the next sequence where we're all parading over the cars, that's all real.
The boom, and it starts to lift up, and then maybe somebody grabs or whatever.
And then it's like boom, boom, we all walk right The teeth really help get you in character. Just like pop them in, you're there.
So the technique that we use is to first capture the scene with the performer, and then afterwards you'll do other things to try to fill in the missing gaps. Like you'll record the whole scene again so that we have information of what the camera might expect to see behind him. And so you have to paint in a lot of things to help take the performer out of the set. There's a lot of information that has to get gathered to recreate in a virtual world everything that you see in the real world.
So much of what you're having to replace is very reflective because it's all about just a bunch of shiny cars. So you take an ape performer who's running down a row of cars and you're not only having to paint out them, but you're also having to deal with their reflection that's in the car they're standing on, the car in front of them, the car behind them. If the camera moves from here to here, the reflection changes quite a bit. The trickiest part about the whole thing was just trying to make sure we actually had coverage. We had up to 80 cars basically lined up in rows. There were lots of occlusion issues. You'd have 8 performers that would be dipping in between and in amongst these vehicles.
Action! one of the biggest challenges from a practical point of view for an animator is the sheer number of apes that we have in some of these shots.
When you're talking about apes within that particular sequence, you're having to shoot 6 or 7 performance capture artists, because that's really the maximum that you can capture at any one time, and they have to represent 150 apes. You then have to block everything accordingly. You have to block all the extras in exactly the same way over and over again.
Background action and action.
When they shot it on the set, there was 3 or 4 actors that they had that they were actually motion capturing. So we had those guys to start with, but then we would have to go back to our motion capture library where we have all these random run cycles and jumps and climbing over cars and start adding all those in as well. So a shot that originally had 3 ape performers in it ends up having 150 apes in it.
It's getting the scale of the bridge. I mean, we could only build a section of the bridge, and then our plan was then we would extend the set digitally.
We actually created, a full digital set of the Golden Gate Bridge, and we created the surrounding hills and the ocean. It's quite a massive set that we actually ended up building. When we first started, we started looking at the sequences that were being turned over, and we looked at the previs that was being done, and we started to try to break down where those actions were happening across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Starts out with seeing the live plate shots of the bridge and getting a lot of photo reference of the actual bridge as well as the one that was on set. And from that, then it goes to the models department, and the models has to figure out how to match everything exactly. Once all that stuff passes through the models department, it comes to us, then we start all the procedural texturing.
And then that is passed off to the lighting department to do the final render.
There are lots of digital car extensions. In addition to just the cars that we see going off into the fog, there's also interaction with those vehicles. During the shoot, the special effects teams had rigged up some of the vehicles for those clean passes that we shot with hydraulic rigs and things that would actually shake the vehicles as if there were apes, running over them. We're doing digital hood and car roof replacements so that we can actually get dents and dings and take weight under the apes.
It was amazing. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life physically. The beautiful thing about it was that we got to use and interact with real props. And we were jumping over real cars. We were smashing real windows. It was something that you didn't have to pretend.
We used our ape performance, we used real stunts, hundreds of cars, we used hundreds of extras, and there's an extraordinary atmosphere, but it uses every part of the bridge. It's quite an event.
So that was one of the main breakthroughs of the film, was being able to really complete the 2 performance capture worlds coming together. What we're hoping people take away from what Weta brought to the film is just believing what you see. We really just enjoy making films where you can sit there and look at it and say, wow, I didn't know this existed, but it must.